Hello and welcome. I am your host of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? Author Karen E. Osborne. I have five novels out. The latest is Justice for Emerson. I am so glad that you're here. This is a space for readers and writers to come together and talk about books. I am so excited to introduce you to a Renaissance woman, Via Kemanis. Hey, Via,
Hi, Karen. How are you?
I am great, and I am so glad that you have joined us today. So let me tell you all a little bit about her, and then she will tell you all about herself. So the reason I say that she's a Renaissance woman is that she's an accomplished dancer of classical ballet, modern jazz, and contemporary style. So she's a dancer. She's danced and choreographed all over, including California and Colorado and in New York. She's also, get this, a criminal prosecutor and an award-winning author with a new novel out in Delicate Deception. Now, doesn't that all sound intriguing? So let's start. I read your bio, and it sounds like you just had this wonderful childhood. You lived in the large loving family, and you said that in your bio, it said that you were passionate about politics and social issues. Your parents were in theater and music. So you were surrounded by all of these people who were culturally attuned and immersed, right? It sounds like such a rich beginning for an author. Tell us how your childhood and that way that you were brought up and the people around you influenced your career as a writer.
Yes, well, I really was very fortunate to grow up in a very large family, and it was in the Bay Area of California. And my stepfather was a professor of music at Cal Berkeley. My mother, in addition to being a homemaker with such a large family, was also an actress in local theater. And they were both very social. So we had the house full of guests very frequently. We had professors, university students, musicians, actors, all kinds of goings on. And also the timing of my youth. I was in high school in 1968 to 1972. Those were very tumultuous years socially and politically. So there was a lot of debate and discussion always going on in the house on, as you know, those were the years of the Vietnam War, the civil rights movement, feminism, hippie culture, all this kind of stuff going on. So it was a very rich environment, a learning environment all the time. The other thing I'm very grateful to my parents for was, despite their very limited budget, giving me dance classes. I was the only of my seven of us siblings. I was the only one who was the dancer, and I just loved it so much. So it's carried me throughout life. And I pursued that for a while, but then realized it's very difficult to make a living as a professional dancer. If you don't get into one of the big companies and actually make a salary, all the rest is for free. So I then went to college and law school and then moved from the West Coast to the East Coast, New York, and started my law career in Manhattan, where I was with the Manhattan DA's office, New York State Organized Crime Force, and also with the court system for many years. So all of these experiences, yes, they have given me a wealth of material to put into my fiction writing, which is a really big love of mine, escaping into those fictional worlds and just drawing on little bits here and there of everything that life has had to offer and coming up with new characters and situations.
Yeah, sounds like you'd also be great at writing a memoir. We are
Might.
in the world of fiction today. Um, so as you read your many books and short stories, um, how did you bring both the law and uh, the freedom and the freewheeling conversations? How did you bring those together in your books? Can you give us some examples?
Yes, well, I've been writing for quite a while, and I think I first started writing short stories when I was in the district attorney's office. I think I needed a little bit of escape. And so, of course, there was always the cases I was working on that give you ideas for certainly crime fiction, police procedural fiction, courtroom drama, that kind of stuff, which I have written an awful lot of. But I also am just really interested in um, the psychology of behavior, what motivates people. And so I've written on many, many different themes in my short stories, especially. At this point, 40 or 50 years in, I've probably written hundreds of short stories and I've collected them I have five collections at this point, and the most recent one was kind of a best of collection called Your Pick, and it won an award for Best Story Collection, the Eric Hoffer Award. And the subject matter is all over the place. There are some crime stories that I draw my career from, and there are also some stories dance related. There are also many stories involving families and situations with career women and love and relationships. So I do explore many different themes. But my novels, thus far, I've had a whole collection of legal suspense novels, and those are really crime related, courtroom drama, with my protagonist. Her name is Dana Hargrove. And the very first novel in
So
that
this is a
series of
series?
six.
So this is a
Yes, it's a
series?
series of six.
Mm.
And well, the interesting thing I found about writing this series was I spread the timing out, the settings 6 or 7 years apart. So I took my protagonist when she was first a very young rookie in the DA's office, and that novel was called Thursday's List. It was set in 1988. And I drew on a big investigation I was working on prior to that, investigating money laundering of the Colombian narcotics cartel. So it was an interesting case, and I got my protagonist Dana involved in that when she was a rookie in my first novel, and then I skipped several years between each novel, so they're all standalones,
Mhm.
and they all take her at different stages of her life and career. Her family life also gets involved in them. And so she started in 1988 with the first novel, and the last novel is set in 2022, and she's 60 years old, and she's an appellate judge in a very busy appellate court in Manhattan. So,
Wow,
and
that is exciting. So is that in Delegate Deception? That's the one that she's a judge?
no, interestingly enough, Indelicate Deception is completely different. Okay, so
Totally different. Okay,
I
so
finished
tell us
I
the
pretty much
premise.
finished the six Dana Hargrove novels, and my
Okay.
new novel, I just broke off and did something different.
So tell us about it. Tell us the premise of Indelicate Deception.
Indelicate Deception, yes. That novel is a family story. It's not specifically a crime novel, although it does have suspense in it. The protagonist is a young girl who was born in the early 70s, and I wanted to explore um, or create characters who kind of grew up in the same place, Berkeley, California, and the same time frame as when I grew up. So it takes place in the early 70s. And the protagonist, her nickname is Katie. I'll call her Katie. She never knew her mother. Her father raised her, a very loving man, and he told her about her mother, but she always suspected throughout her life that he may have been holding back some things, and there were some kind of family secrets involved. And so when she becomes a young adult, she decides to do her own investigation and find out, why did her parents split up? Where is her mother? And why isn't she a part of her life? And so a
Mm,
big part of the book is kind of her idealization of her mother through the stories of her father, through her young life. And then later her discoveries of kind of the truth about what happened.
mm.
And it culminates in a rather emotional meeting between mother and daughter, and some
Wow.
suspense leading up to that.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds pretty amazing. Um, so tell us a little bit more about Katie in terms of her things that you love about her, the qualities that you love about her, and then some of the areas that you want her to, at least during the story, to grow and fix.
Mhm. Yeah,
Some of those not so
well,
great qualities.
she's a very smart young woman. The story starts when she's quite young, and she's actually writing it, narrating it from an older age, going back to
Mm,
remember what it was like growing up with her father, and they had such a close relationship. So she's very smart. She's very perceptive, though, and feels that her father may be holding some things back. And her father, Roy, who's also a very strong character in this book, um, is just such a wonderful, loving man. He's religious. He's had a very tough life. He was a Vietnam War veteran. He was wounded in Vietnam. He was drafted. And yet, despite his very difficult life, he is a very optimistic kind of personality.
mm,
So the two of them are very close, and yet she feels that he's holding back. And we come to understand kind of why, because her mother, Lenore, was very different from her father and did hurt him, and he's trying to shield his daughter somewhat. So, if there's anything to fault about the characters, Roy, maybe for having held back some things, yet we come to understand why he did that to protect his daughter. And from her point of view, taking off on her own and worried about maybe hurting her father to conduct her investigation on her own. Yet she finds
mm.
out later that he's kind of aware of what she's up to. And the ending is very nice and sweet. The fact that they're all very good about how she finally discovered where her mother was and what happened, which is, I will not give away
Tell
the
us too
secret.
much. Don't
Yeah.
tell us too much. We want everybody to pick up the story, right? To get the story where it goes. So, do you do much research for your books? Do you have to dig or is it all just from your memory or how does that work for you?
Well, for the legal suspense novels involving the Dana Hargrove, I didn't need to do too much research because I just was involved in thousands of cases in my career, and they're all swimming in there somewhere, and I know the law, I know the legal procedure, and I can concoct my plots and my courtroom drama from that. I only do a little touch-up research when I feel I've forgotten something
Mm,
or want to see in the time frame in which I am setting the book, if there are any particularly prominent cases in those years. Because as I said, my Dana Hargrove books happen in very different years throughout her career. For the new book, In Delicate Deception, again, I wanted to go back to reflect on my own youth. And so a lot of that is still in there. It takes place in
mhm,
Berkeley, where I grew up, takes place during that very tumultuous time for race relations and also feminism and so forth. And Roy and Lenore are an interracial couple. I do explain some of the legal aspects. Lenore is a law student, so we talk a little bit about Loving versus Virginia and how only recently interracial marriages were, found to any prohibition against it was banned by the Supreme Court as late as 1967. And the book takes place in 1972, 73, in that area. But what I did do, there was one bit of research that I will say that I did with this book, the draft. When I was growing up, I think I was a young teenager when the draft was going on. My younger brothers were too young to be drafted. My older brother was old enough to be drafted. I lived my entire childhood thinking that my brother had a college deferment, and I only found out this year that he did not have a college deferment. Those had stopped at the time that they were doing the lottery, and he was just very lucky that he got a very high lottery number and was not drafted. Well,
Mm.
my character in my book, Roy, got number one in the draft lottery. And to prepare for the book, I watched the televised version of how they did this lottery. And it was just chilling. I mean, it was like a game show, right? 1969, they're rolling a drum, pulling out birth dates and giving people numbers. And it
Yeah.
just struck me so deeply what those young boys and men must have gone through and families just to have to go through that to find out if they are going to be sent off to Vietnam. Anyway, that was one very wake-up call
No,
on
that's a
research.
it's something that certainly resonates with me. My husband fought in the Vietnam War,
Oh my goodness.
and he and his brother got their draft notice together. They're 11 months apart, and they decided to enlist in the Air Force together, that, rather than to spend
Yeah,
two
ground troops.
years in Vietnam. They decided to you know to do the 4 years. And then my character in my latest novel, Justice for Emerson, he too was in the Vietnam War. Yeah,
Oh,
so
so
uh,
interesting. We're writing about some of the same stuff.
yes, exactly,
I look forward to
exactly.
reading that book. I loved your first book, True
Thank
Grace.
you. I look forward to reading yours as well. It's interesting. Those eras were so rich, right? It was a time of such change and hope. Hope
It
for,
was.
Yes, yes. So, one of the things that we like to talk about here is what are we reading as well as what are we writing?
Mhm.
And I wonder if you could think back. I mean, you've had so much, such a rich background, but was there an author or a book that had such an impact on you that it helped shape the kind of writer you are?
I wish I could say that. I really have kind of, tried to scan my mind for one particular or two particular writers. Frankly, I cannot do that. I read a lot. I'm constantly reading fiction. I've read so many writers, and I feel like I've learned something from every good writer that I've read. I feel like I learned something. So I always have two or three books going at a time. And I love language so much that I don't really rush through books if it's a good writer. I do take the time to savor the writing. I like to
Mm,
figure out how they put their language together to evoke the feeling or emotion or image that they're going for. So I love all kinds of writers. In short stories, I like the minimalists like Raymond Carver or Hemingway, and more full writing styles like Alice Munro or Catherine Mansfield in short stories. I've read a lot of short story writers. And in novels, I really like novelists who go into deep psychological depth and character
yeah,
development. So I don't know, some
me
of my
too.
favorite writers are like Ann Patchett, Kent Harif, and Lisa C. There are just so many of them. Amor Towles is a favorite. Um, but interestingly, very talk about what we are reading. Recently, a book that just impressed me so much, and I had just finished writing in Delicate Deception. I listened to the audiobook of The Color of Water by Jason
Uh,
McBride. And I
Yes.
think there's a couple of audiobooks out there, but the one that I listened to was fantastic was Andre Brower and Lainey Kazan. And they just brought it to life. And of course, it was that same time period that we were just talking about, kind of the late 60s when he was growing up. And it was just so fascinating. So
Yeah,
that's
that was a beautiful book, and I too love audiobooks. And I love it when actors and really wonderful voice actors read. I really appreciate that. That was a wonderful, wonderful book. Yes. So now that you've got everybody so intrigued, everybody wants to meet you, everybody wants to follow you, they want to read your books, all of your books, and your short stories. So, what's the best way for people to find you?
Well, I would say just go to my website. Everything's on my website. My website is my name, www.vskemanis, Kemanis. And every book is described and links to where they're available and review excerpts and so forth all over there. And I'm also all over social media too. If there happen to be any dancers out there, I do have a YouTube channel that is mostly dance. It's some of my performances, and I also have free online dance classes if you want to take a dance class.
Wow, I just today is the day that we're recording this, not the day that it's going to air. Was Denny S. Bryce, and she's an amazing historical fiction writer, but she is also a dancer. I'm going to tell her about you.
Oh, cool.
She's that's of the many things that she did, one of them was being a professional dancer. So it's cool. I love being able to bring people together. So I hope all of you have enjoyed this conversation as much as I have enjoyed this conversation. And I hope that you will go and find the book of V.S. Kemanis and that you will buy them, read them, review them, because those mean so much. And all the dancers out there, I hope you will watch her videos and then you will be in touch with her and you'll tell her that you met her on What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? Until next week, everybody, have a great, great week. Bye bye.